In 1988, Every Little Step became one of the defining singles of the new Jack Swing era. The track appeared on Don't Be Cruel, the second solo album by Bobby Brown, and helped propel him to the height of late 1980s pop and R&B stardom. The album spent 6 consecutive weeks at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart and went on to sell more than 7 million copies in the United States alone. Every Little Step earned Brown a Grammy Award for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance and remains one of his signature songs. For decades, listeners assumed that the lead vocals on the track were entirely Brown's. However, a later account from his former manager suggested that another familiar voice was also present on the recording. To understand how that came to be, it is necessary to revisit the early history shared by Bobby Brown and Ralph Tresvant. Both grew up in Boston and rose to prominence as members of New Edition, alongside Ronnie DeVoe, Ricky Bell, and Michael Bivins. Formed in the early 1980s, New Edition quickly achieved commercial success with singles such as Candy Girl, Call It Now, and Mr. Telephone Man. The group was frequently compared to the Jackson 5 for its youthful appeal and synchronized performances. Internal tensions developed as the group matured. In 1985, Bobby Brown was dismissed from New Edition. Public explanations at the time cited behavioral and professional conflicts. Brown later described the separation as a turning point that allowed him to pursue a more individual artistic direction. While Brown embarked on a solo career, Ralph Tresvant remained with New Edition and became one of its primary vocalists. Despite the professional split, Brown and Tresvant maintained a long-standing personal friendship rooted in their shared upbringing. After an initial solo effort that met with modest results, Brown released Don't Be Cruel in 1988. Produced primarily by the emerging hit-making team of L.A. Reid and Babyface, the album became a commercial and cultural landmark. It included multiple hit singles, among them My Prerogative, Roni, Rock Witcher, and Every Little Step. The project is widely credited with helping define the new Jack Swing sound, blending R&B vocals with hip-hop influenced rhythms. Years later, Marty Machat, who managed Brown during that period, described aspects of the album's production in an interview. According to Machat, Brown's attendance in the studio was inconsistent during parts of the recording process. He stated that Brown occasionally failed to appear for scheduled sessions at a time when the album was nearing completion. Machat specifically referenced the recording of Every Little Step. In his account, producers L.A. Reid and Babyface were preparing to leave the studio while waiting for Brown to finalize vocal parts. During that session, Ralph Tresvant was present. With time running short and portions of the track unfinished, Tresvant recorded vocal lines to complete the song. Machat asserted that the final version of Every Little Step contains vocals from both Brown and Tresvant. The production team blended the performances in a way that made them sonically cohesive. The song was released without public acknowledgement that more than one lead vocalist contributed to the final recording. If Tresvant did record portions of the track, the collaboration was not publicly discussed at the time of the album's release. Every Little Step was promoted as a Bobby Brown single, and Brown received industry recognition for the performance, including his Grammy win. The plausibility of such a collaboration rests partly on the artists' shared musical background. Brown and Tresvant had sung together for years as members of New Edition. Their voices developed within the same stylistic framework, and both were experienced in R&B phrasing and harmony. With skilled production and vocal processing, blending their performances would not necessarily have been noticeable to listeners. Producers L.A. Reid and Babyface were known for polished studio craftsmanship. The late 1980s saw increased use of vocal layering, harmonizers, and subtle electronic effects. These techniques could help unify separate recordings into a seamless final product. If Tresvant's contribution occurred as described, it would have been integrated through standard production practices rather than presented as a featured duet. What stands out in Machat's account is that the information did not become widely known during the height of Brown's success. Tresvant did not publicly claim credit for contributing vocals to one of Brown's most recognizable songs. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, Every Little Step continued to be associated exclusively with Brown. The period during which Don't Be Cruel was recorded coincided with significant personal challenges for Brown. In later interviews and memoirs, he spoke candidly about substance use and the pressures of rapid fame. The late 1980s marked the beginning of a cycle of commercial success and personal instability that would continue into the following decade. Despite those struggles, Don't Be Cruel remains one of the most commercially successful R&B albums of its era. It expanded Brown's identity beyond his time in New Edition and positioned him as a leading figure in contemporary R&B. The album's influence can be traced in the work of later artists who incorporated new jack swing elements into their own music. Ralph Tresvant also pursued a solo career. In 1990, he released his self-titled debut album, which included the #1 R&B single, Sensitivity. His career maintained a steadier public profile, and he continued to be associated with New Edition projects and reunions. Over time, the members of New Edition reconciled professionally and reunited for tours and recordings. Brown rejoined the group for various projects, demonstrating that earlier conflicts did not permanently sever their working relationships. If Tresvant did step in during the Every Little Step session, the episode reflects the collaborative nature of studio production. While albums are marketed under a single artist's name, recordings often involve contributions from multiple performers, engineers, and creative partners. Background vocals, guide tracks, and replacement lines are common elements of the recording process. Every Little Step remains a defining track of late 1980s R&B. It has been sampled, covered, and referenced across decades. The song's energetic rhythm and vocal hooks helped secure Brown's position in pop culture history. The account shared by Machat adds context to the album's creation and highlights the professional intersection between two former bandmates whose careers evolved in parallel. Whether heard as a strictly solo performance or as a layered collaboration, the recording stands as a product of its time, shaped by studio craftsmanship, artistic ambition, and the realities of life at the height of commercial success. More than 30 years after its release, Every Little Step continues to be played on radio stations and streaming platforms worldwide. Its legacy reflects not only Bobby Brown's emergence as a solo star, but also the broader network of relationships and creative decisions that shape successful records.